Kim.
And you're off.
I've got some. I don't know, but it's Canadian.
I'm just have 5 minutes, right? So I'm just going to talk about a few things that I've been doing this year and how they relate to change. And my company, Humanific, we're very focused on how do we help create change. And we have different tools. Some of them are about what we call visual sense making. So one of the things that we talk about is before we create change, we have to create understanding. And that is coming from sort of thinking. So we've created sort of this way of looking at, we have to do some thinking and create some understanding, and that will bring some change. So one of the areas that I've been very excited this year is how do we create change in a social space? And we all work for companies. Our clients' business, mostly in the business space, and what we've been working on this year is a project that's called the Measure of America. I don't know if anybody's heard about it. And this is actually a separate report that came out after. It's called A Portrait of Mississippi. But the Measure of America is, does anybody know what human development is?
Sure.
From the UN? Can you tell me? Who said yes?
Yes. I didn't say I could tell you. I said I've heard of it.
Something related to the Millennium Development Goals, or we have human development, some metrics and some goals that we're tracking?
Sure, it's related to that. So human development is a concept that was developed about 20 years back by this guy, a UN Pakistani economist. So he talked about how do we measure development of a country beyond the GDP, a country's GDP, into a more human perspective. And we look at the different things that connect to a person and that we think about them and how we measure a country. So this is a concept that's been around for about 20 years, and it's there's been about 30 reports, and there's a global one I think happens every 2 years, and then a lot of developing countries, come out with theirs for their countries. And the reality is what we're trying to do there is create some understanding of what's the situation somewhere so that we can actually improve it and create some change. So we've had the honor of working with a team in the US, a person that was the deputy director of the Human Development Program in New York and in the UN. And this person decided that there's no really measurement of the U.S. and we need to do a report for the U.S. And this is not something that the UN focuses on because the UN focuses on developing countries. So we worked on the first developed country report. The first one was the U.S. And it was really very much because there's great differences, disparities in the states and the groups that are very high up in development, but actually in our country in the last 20 years, there are a lot of people that have fallen down, so the disparities are great. So I'll pass this around. It's a little bit hard to see, but there's a full layout that talks about human development. What was super interesting to me is that in about 20 years, in about 30 reports, there was not one concept diagram that tried to explain what human development is. We came up with a simple diagram. Now it looks very simple. It was quite an extensive project to really define how do we think about a person, how do we help them go up their development journey. And we came up with a very simple diagram that shows a person where they start when they're born, where they are, and they could be in any place as far as their development journey, and what do they do over time. So for the person that's up here, how do we help them come up here? And if you're sort of a little bit higher up, your journey is going to be different. But how do we understand the different things that affect our lives to help us get up there? And there are 3 main components, and I'll just pass this around, that have to do with how do you measure human development. And they are about health, basically a long and healthy life, access to knowledge, and a standard of living, a decent standard of living. So how those 3 things affect your life, and we have a little journey. So to me, I'm just telling about this project that we've done this year because what was so interesting was that the tools that we use to help businesses sell their products, think about their new strategies, their visions, how do we apply these tools and this thinking to very meaningful areas that can help, you know, our countries and sort of our governments to really think about how do we shape policy. So one of the great responses that we've had is, if I make this journey, I'm just going to close the sentence, if I make this journey of understanding something much easier, the people are going to spend their time on the action versus understanding long reports that are just showing a lot of data and they're very hard.